Welcome to the world of Warcraft.
Alright, for today I've got a different type of video. We're going to be exploring the struggles of a group and some of the warning signs to look for and things to do and not do as tank, DPS, heals. You know, just kind of the group dynamics. Now, mind you, this was a late night group. I didn't expect to get this. It was about 11 p.m. local time. So we're all probably a little tired. Some of us, it may be early morning. But with how most of us played, I think everybody was at least awake at the start. You'll notice our Paladin's the lowest level, our Paladin tank. This is not to talk about him or how good or how bad he is in particular. What I would like to focus on with this video is more of things to look for in a group, people's reaction times, and how to adapt to others' playstyles. The one thing I did notice about our tank is his gearing was a bit more like a warrior. So he's potentially tanked as a warrior before, and as a paladin. You know, for single target, he actually did fine. But as far as groups where paladins usually shine, he struggled to hold aggro, and you'll see that later. For now, we're just cleaning up some of the early pulls. We actually had died before I started this recording. As you can see this little group right there. We had pulled all of them at once, and I died. So did the other druid. So that was a rough start, and what actually prompted me to start this recording. So I will try to fast forward some of the slower parts of this because there's a lot of waiting. So here, let me go ahead and pause the video, and we will annotate something specific to Turtle WoW that was not in Classic. This group here can and will be pulled separate from this group. So these can be pulled, and these will not come. They're not linked at all, thankfully. And our Paladin tank knows this. He does a good job pulling these separate. One thing you will notice here, though, although our tank is in front, he is not facing the group. And that's something you always want to be prepared. You always want to be in front as the tank, somewhere up here in this line. As the healer, you do want to stay behind him, and his DPS, they're doing a good job of making sure that they don't aggro. All of our DPS are over here off screen. Kind of see here on the mini-map. Go ahead and start the video again, and you'll see us start this patrol. To the left here, we're going to be seeing them come up. So here comes the patrol. Tank aggroes it. Thankfully, it did not aggro this group here when he came up. So that was nice. You'll notice the tank did hold threat that whole time. Piece of cake. Our Ret and our Druid here will be pulling threat at times. But that's pretty normal for any tank. There's no special be-all, end-all, in my experience as a tank, to keep your DPS from pulling threat at certain times. It's just going to happen, and you have to know how to deal with it. Another thing to notice is that I am not a great Druid healer, and I go out of mana real quick. Still working on that myself. So any feedback from more experienced druids, I'd be more than happy. I know that downranking's a thing with priests, but I am not aware of how to do that properly as a druid. At least not yet. Need more experience. Let's go ahead and pause the video again real quick. We'll let the tank finish marking. Maybe. There we go. So you notice he's got his marks. We're going to be sheeping, and then we're going to be killing Skull and X. Now, one thing with these groups in Lower Blackrock Spire, the casters are the most dangerous. As long as a tank can hold threat on the melee, so we've got our melee here, we'll highlight him in red. He is the weaker of the threats here because these guys can do full damage. These DPS, or these casters, will do the most damage. So taking them out first is actually great. So marking one as sheep with Moon here, no problem. Piece of cake. Totally makes sense. But the kill order here is backwards. This should be switched. Because the Legionnaire is less of a threat to the group than the Acolyte, I believe. So that's just something to be aware of as a tank. By default, killing the casters is first priority. There are special edge cases, and you'll run into those yourself and have to adapt. You'll hear me say that a lot. Adapting is one of the big things in these kind of MMOs and whatnot, because there's a certain set of ground rules, but depending on how your group makeup is, how you're geared, your ability level, you'll just have to adapt as you go. So let's go ahead and continue the video. This is one of our better pulls, in my opinion. The tank goes in, he gets threat. Now you see he hasn't quite switched targets yet. There he goes. He should be trying to target the Acolyte now. Yep, he's got some threat on her. And she's trying to heal. She gets one off. We don't have a lot of interrupts, but we're burning them down. I will say during this run that our druid with the frost cat skin threw me off a bit a couple times. I kind of lost them visually because I'm so used to the darker night elf druid skin. It was still a really cool skin. I actually thought about getting it for my druid, but I haven't pulled the trigger on that yet. Early on, our paladins were doing a lot of self-healing, and they'd heal me when we got low. They weren't letting the HOTS, heals over time, tick for very much. Which I understand. Not trusting a healer or a tank is pretty common when you've had bad experiences in the past. See, he just went and healed himself even though he was at full health. Habits. Inspecting doesn't always work. I wanted to see what his sword is. I'll try and remember to add on the part where I actually got to see his sword. So right up here, once we get a little further, I want to pause the video and talk about this next pull. See if I can get a full shot. Here we go. Oh, his name's in the way, dang it. There. All right, good enough. So here we have the two groups. As in the previous room, this group and this group don't pull together. This was true in Classic as well. You could pull this left group, no problem. These two groups are not linked. And our Paladin tank does a good job here pulling only the left group. Let us continue. Sheeping the melee mob in this case is not a bad idea, although with just the three here, the two non-elites and one elite, you could probably just tank it. I did like the Paladin using Dynamite to pull, since they don't have the ability to throw their shield in Classic, at least not on Turtle WoW yet. I don't know if they're going to add that later. You notice that the Paladin's reaction time is a little bit slower. This gentleman in particular had a warning notice when when the full group was formed, and he mentioned being legally blind, so to make sure to run to him with mobs, let him know in a whisper if something's going on you don't like. those kinds of things, which is really handy because it lets the group know, hey, this is what's going on. I'm not ignoring you. I'm not doing this or that. These are real things that I'm struggling with, so please be considerate. Never a bad idea to communicate with your group. Now, as a healer and a tank here, you have to be careful with groups like this. With 2 ranged casters, we are going to sheep 1, but the other one will be free to cast on the healer until you get threat. And I try to hold off as long as I can until I need to start healing. He does go and stun the DPS that's hitting me, so that is super helpful. And they end up actually targeting it as they should have from the start. Now, but they still kill the 2 tanky type NPCs first instead of the one doing all the damage. So that's probably just a personal preference of mine, but I think you'll see that it makes sense as we go to go ahead and take out the targets that can do the most damage to the group. One cool thing, you saw that little portal the Warlock was trying to open. You'll see that a few more times. Demons will come through it, and there's a rare chance of a rare mob to come through there, and they drop their own loot, which is pretty cool in my opinion. Several times in Retail Classic, my group would actually leave the Warlock alive, let their portal kick out demons just to see if we couldn't get that rare mob. Nobody needed any loot off it. It's just another cool thing in WoW, another little flavor thing that they threw in. And it makes the game that much more exciting and fun. So this group was the first one that we really struggled with. And before he pulls, I do want to let you know of the struggle with this pull. Go ahead and annotate here. We've got this group here, and this group over here kind of cut off by the minimap. 2 casters, 1 melee. You can use this area down here, I'll highlight it in green, to line of sight these casters. If you're down here where our tank is, you can hide, no problem. That is until the mob runs over here. Once they get here, they can start casting on you down here, and there's really nowhere else for you to go. No other line of sight breaking. So it's up to your tank and your DPS to either take them out or get threat, something to keep them off you. Let's go ahead and see how this group pulls, and we'll talk about it. Here we go. Clear that annotation before I forget. All right, so you can see the tank trying to jump up there. It's not working. Finally gets up there. Now my heal's going to tick, and it's going to make this mob in the back upset, so he starts casting on me. The tank does try to go get a hit on him. For some reason, he pops a bubble. I don't know if that was a misclick or not, but I go into bear here just to get my health up and take a little more damage. I am trying to line of sight that mob, upper left. You'll see him start to hit me a little bit. I try to go back into cover. Now I have nowhere to hide, so I go into bear to get a little more health. I start trying to heal myself. He counter spells. Disastrous. It's such a long interruption that I cannot do anything until the fight's already over. Somehow my PvP window comes up there. We ended up pulling the extra group there. Not a huge deal, thankfully, because everybody had enough mana to deal with them. And our other paladin is healing me. I'm never going to argue with DPS healing me, but there are times when I'm not in any danger and I'd rather just have them focus on killing the mob. But, you know, they don't know me and how I prefer to play, and having a dead healer is never a good thing, so they're trying to make sure I'm up. Cannot argue with that. All right. Let me pause this real quick when we go back and get a shot of our tank. And we'll talk about this next pull. So, what happened? I'm still drinking. I'm not quite at full mana. Not a huge deal usually. But with my current gear and my lack of abilities, I don't feel comfortable without full mana. If possible, not a huge deal though. 87%, 100% is pretty close. We still have Innervate up. You know, we've still got mana potions. We'll be all right for just one pull of 4 mobs. Now, we didn't mark anything. Also not a problem if the group knows what to do, what to kill. Nothing's been communicated yet, so we don't know exactly what to do. Our DPS, we're not quite ready for the tank. Go ahead and pull those. He's going to pull them back here to the bridge. Not a great place to fight. Lots of open space to fall. So be aware that this pull is a little bit tricky. I prefer to fight them over here if you can. You can kind of line of sight them here. You do have to be careful. Obviously, you could fall. But that's just my personal opinion as the tank. I'm not the tank here. I queued up as a healer. So let's go ahead and play this, and you'll see how it plays out. Thankfully, we were able to save the situation. Oh, it does get a little tricky. One thing you'll see is I actually use, I will try and pause it here in just a second when I start seeing it right here. 2 things happened. Our mage, thankfully, was pretty solid. They were able to sheep one of the casters. Excellent, right? That takes off, you know, this 400 health or so that I'm taking every Shadow Bolt. I'm always a fan of taking less damage, right? Everybody should be focusing on trying to make sure that the group takes as little damage as possible, whether that's from crowd control or is the tank keeping threat on just you, so that the healer only has to worry about 1 target instead of 5. The other thing that happens here is I realized this can be used to line of sight these spells. So the caster is trying to cast on me, but I'm going to be using and abusing this pillar. Highlight it once again, just how important it is, and watch it and see just how much damage I'm able to avoid, and when I mess up and remain in the open with a clear line of sight too long. Here we go. You can see the portal open there and close. I think it might be bugged on Turtle WoW, but here we are. We're using that pillar again. In a second, that sheep is going to pop open and start casting on us. Unless my memory is faulty. A little bit longer than I thought. But I am hanging near this pillar because I know that the caster will have a lot of threat on me. See, he's casting. I use this pillar. He can't hit me. Now he's already switched to our Ret Paladin, who's going to start taking some damage here. No problem. But always be on the lookout for those kind of situations. Anything you can use to line of sight and prevent damage to yourself or the group. Thankfully, our tank didn't pull the groups to the left here. He is only 56. So he can accidentally pull more mobs to him than he means just by getting too close. Got a bit of a long break here. That's the mob I was talking about, our tank pulling an accident. Thankfully he did not. Now here, I'm going to pause it and talk about how to pull this group. There's no easy way to pull this one. There's no, the line of sight thing here is a little bit tricky, and when you get down here too far to get into range for the mage to cast the spells, it doesn't always work because I believe this also is line of sight, so it's just hard to target those mobs. So what I recommend doing, as a warrior tank, mind you, I have not done paladin tank. You run up here and you start aggroing the mobs. You either thunderclap or not commanding shout, demoralizing shout to get initial threat, so that the healer doesn't get smacked as soon as you get up there and they start healing you. Next thing, as a warrior, would be to sunder target every mob, right? Just to make sure you have threat on them. But as a paladin, you should have consecrate, and he has righteous fury on. Notice he does have it on. He's had it on this whole time. It does not fall off. But he's not consecrating on these multiple groups. And this is one that would be super handy to just run up here, drop a consecrate, and then I could let it tick for 1 or 2 before I start my healing, so that the mobs don't turn around and come smack me. I'll let you see how this goes. We end up making it work, but it's just not quite as smooth as we could have. Suggestion of a sheep pull, but you'll notice that the mage is having a hard time getting into line of sight for this, and they end up pulling. Not their fault. I totally understand. I was ready for it. Expected them to get hit. You remember, we see our friend the pillar here, and we use it to line of sight the legionnaire or the warlock spells. And we go into bear. And something that I forgot at this point was, as bear, to go ahead and bash the mob as I was running away, just to give the tank some extra time to come grab a stunned mob instead of one that's just chasing me and doing damage. But as you'll notice, the mage sheeped, piece of cake. We were able to handle this pull without too many issues. Recovery was quite good. I think I'm going to have to break this video into 2 parts, but I will leave the end of the first part for this next pull. Let me go ahead and pause it here, right as our paladin goes in. I'm sure you can see the problem just from this group coming. Thankfully, this back group did not pull. But with this group here, and you'll notice that there's a warlock here with some extra mobs. They're just off screen. But our paladin running up right here at level 56 is aggroing 2 different groups that we should have pulled separate. So just be aware of that. Most tanks know this at this point, but I get asked a lot about tanking, and I'll be doing a tanking video later. For right now, we're just concentrating on a group experience that was a bit rough. I'll be pausing this next fight at several points to go over what's happening and try to highlight some of the important points. What's going on, though, is you'll notice that I start this fight now at under 50% health, just a shy, a tad under. Our paladin's low, and our mage isn't at full. So nobody is starting this fight ready. Not even the tank has full mana. So I don't think he intended to pull all of this. Let's go ahead and watch as we try to handle this pull. I will say that nobody wipes, so don't stress about that. If I think I actually might be the only one that dies, I'm able to save the tank here, but I'm ready to line of sight here. So at this point, I have aggro on this warlock, and I think this spellbinder. But I've used this line of sight with this paladin, who's very wisely decided to join me, and we are around the corner so that those casters can't hit us. Let's go ahead and continue. So now we are faced with those two mobs that have come after us. You'll notice our paladin here, aware of what's going on, stunned this spellbinder. Super helpful, right? We just took a crit for 652. That hurts. We used Swift Mend and our biggest heal, got ourselves up. But you'll notice this other warning sign, mana low. How are we going to deal with it? We still have our mana potions, and we still have Innervate. Oh no, Innervate was down for this. Did I use it earlier? Oh, it looks like it's down. I don't recall. Let's see. So I've gone Bear. Took a 400 Shadow Bolt. And now I was trying to bash there. But notice here that Blessing of Protection was used. So I was unable to bash. You'll notice that that's what this little gray misty glow is. I can still cast spells, but I cannot do anything offensively. And it only protects from physical damage, which I was only getting hit with spells, so I believe it helps drop threat, but it didn't really protect us. Things to worry about here. Tank's getting low. DPS is starting to take some damage. Thankfully, our druid hasn't taken much, and our mage is still free with actually more mana than she started the fight. Let's continue. So I innervate myself there and drink a potion. And then I get counterspelled. So you'll notice that all my spells are on cooldown here. So to survive, our paladins are going to have to take care of themselves. You'll notice he's bubbled, and he started healing our tank. And I'm still getting hit by the caster from here. There's a lot going on, but we're still alive. We're going to start getting hit melee. I go into Bear. Tank's almost dead, and I'm almost dead. Right here. Now, I'm still locked out of my spells. There's really not much I can do. I'm still getting hit, so I can't bandage. Not that I have any. You'll notice that somebody needs to finish off their bandage. But even if that was there, that's not really an option when you're getting hit by spells. Thankfully, we are still regaining mana from Innervate. But right now, it's looking pretty dire. What are we going to do? Let's find out. Did you hear that? Our paladin used Lay on Hands. So he's back up, but he's already taken a lot of damage. So he's definitely eating a lot of these spells from the Spellbinder. Another thing to note here that was super helpful, and I didn't catch it until just now, but I did notice she was doing it earlier. Our druid, our feral druid, has started to help heal. Now she's healing this target when we really could use heals on this target, but the fact that she's able to keep one of the paladins up is great because he's got more armor than I do, than the mage does. So we're able to survive a bit longer because of that. Our paladin here is casting Lay on Hands, I believe, on this paladin. And our mage, I'm not exactly sure what she was doing here. Let's take a look. Now, I heard another Lay on Hands, but I didn't really see health go up. I think he might have used it on himself. I will say another good thing. This tank was able to hold 3 mobs here and let our DPS finish off these 2. So with a messy pull like that, the ability to keep the majority of the mobs on you is always a good thing. Doesn't mean that we did well with this pull. It was very messy and everybody had to use a lot of cooldowns, but he at least kept the majority of the mobs on him. So I will take that every time. And as they clean up this group, I will just say that we will be back with part 2 soon. And I hope you enjoyed. And just remember, this applies to more than just Lower Blackrock Spire, although we did go over some of the polls. This can be applied to many different groups you're in. Just be careful, be prepared to adapt to others' play styles. It doesn't mean you have to change yours, but just be ready for theirs. They aren't going to tank the same way as you. They're not going to DPS the same way as you. They're not going to heal the same way as you. And that's okay, but you need to keep your eyes open so you can see those and how they're doing things and adapt so that you can have a successful group even when you're struggling. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in part 2.